Welcome back to Founders in the Field, the show where we go behind the scenes with agency leaders, consultants, and creative founders to show you how they're building, scaling, and staying sane in the trenches. I'm your host, Stefan Bradley, and today's guest is Melanie Schutt, founder of Spring Street. How are you doing, Melanie?
Hi, Stefan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Let's dive straight in. For people who don't know your story, take us right back to the start of your journey and what made you start your own business, and give us an overview of what your role looks like today inside Spring Street.
Yeah, thank you. So I always say I think I have entrepreneurial DNA. Starting when I was young, I always was thinking of new business ideas, and I just loved the act of creating. So I ended up going into the corporate world for a long time, but I always had that drive, that interest in and really, founding my own business, starting my own business, being my own boss. So I founded Spring Street actually twice. First, early in my career, long story short, a ski accident took me back into the corporate world. I'm fine. It was all good. I'm actually kind of grateful for that little detour. I think it really helped. I learned a lot. I had a lot of amazing relationships and really grew as a marketer. So I founded Spring Street the second time, right at the tail end of COVID. Yeah, it's been a journey for sure. Like a lot has changed since then, even in the few years since then. But it's just something I've always wanted to do. It's like truly a dream. I know sometimes entrepreneurs fall into founding their own business because just circumstances, and then end up falling in love with it, or they end up leaving it. But for me, it truly was a dream.
Oh, wonderful. So, working in the corporate to having your own business, they're obviously very different sort of ends of the spectrum, should we say. Obviously, in the corporate
Hmm.
world, you're
Hmm.
very much, sort of binded to, rules, regulations of the company that you're in, and there's a lot more freedom starting your own business. What would you say is, the thing that you enjoy the most about having your own business as opposed to working in corporate?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was in the corporate world, I always had an entrepreneurial thread within that. I was in a startup incubator for a while. And I called myself an entrepreneur because I was always like creating new programs from scratch and building them out from pilot to national expansion, sometimes international expansion. But as you said, Stefan, it's definitely true that you're in a certain structure, and I love the ability to kind of create the structure in which I work, who I work with, how I do the work, when I do the work. I actually named my framework for the fractional CMO business that I have and that I do CMO freedom for that reason. Because I think a lot of times people become what they call their own boss to have the freedom, and then they find themselves constantly working. Like the joke is, I left my 9 to 5 so I could work 24/7. So I actually have a framework where I'm really looking at not just how are we hitting marketing metrics, but how are we like building a business that actually gives you that freedom, that personal freedom, legacy freedom, time freedom, income freedom, all the different types of freedom. So it's not just so your business and your personal life are like fully integrated in that sense of freedom.
So what is your role now in the business, and give us a bit of of how you run the business, what do you offer clients and things like that?
Yeah, so I do three things. I'm a fractional CMO, so I work as that's like a huge trend that's like been booming. I've been doing that for about 3 years now. Yeah, so I come in as a CMO for a fraction, on a fractional basis. And then I have the Spring Street angle is an agency that supports that fractional business. So I can bring in a bench of creative talent and professionals to create, so it's done for you work as well as the strategic work. And then I also do marketing coaching for entrepreneurs, this specifically solopreneurs, because you're wearing every hat as a solopreneur, and sometimes you need that like additional support on the marketing side. It's basically like the coaching that I wish I had, even with all the background that I have in marketing. Marketing yourself and marketing your own business are completely different things. And I kind of learned that through trial and error. And so I created a program for solopreneurs that really helps them like skip past those like potholes that I went through, and just learn how to become their own CMO, their own business.
No, it's like a three-pronged attack sort of, but obviously it hits so many different, three completely different types of the market, different types of buyers that will want different services, and offering, CMO plus actually in the agency field, but then obviously the training field, kind of you hit a lot bigger portion of the market.
Right, exactly. And I didn't like start out saying I'm going to do all these three things. It just sort of evolved naturally. I actually started out saying I'm going to create more of like a boutique agency, but it really, as I said, it evolved into like that three prong approach just based on demand and market need.
So we've got, a bit of background about you and Spring Street. Switching gears a little bit now, what trends are you seeing inside the market today?
Well, the fractional trend is huge. I think every statistic I quote about how much it's grown, it's like outdated within a month. So it's just truly exploding, not just fractional CMO, but CFO, COO, like even fractional CEO. I think that's a trend that's like here to stay, but it's continuing to grow as a trend. I actually had in the last month a few college students reach out to me asking if they can like interview me for their papers or their school projects. So it's now being taught, in schools. And so that's really a growing trend. And then on the agency side, I'm seeing like what I call like a deconstruction of the agency. There will always be like these large agencies that support large companies, but kind of on the smaller end, the sort of idea of having like a retainer agency for a smaller business that you work a certain number of hours, I think that's changing a little bit at that end of the market. So it's more the fractional agency model as well. That's something I'm really seeing. Sometimes it's like a back office that's white labeled as a fractionals agency. Sometimes it's just an agency that works more on a fractional basis than a retainer basis. So that's something I think to pay attention to. And then just all the like the subsidiary businesses that are just spawning out of the fractional model. So recruiting firms that are specific to fractionals, operations like systems that are specific to the way fractionals work, and all the ancillary businesses that are spinning off around that fractional.
It's definitely like spawned off not its own industry because it's in the marketing industry, but its own sort of subsector that other businesses are like evolving around CMO work. Like you said, then even agencies are sort of adopting a fractional way of sort of like pay to play type of thing as opposed to like a whole retainer. So it's definitely interesting to see how models change over time, and through one sort of part of it stepping up like fractional CMO work is now other parts of the same industry are sort of adopting the same tactics.
Right, exactly.
And how do you see like AI affecting, or how is it affecting at the moment your work and the industry that you work in marketing?
Good question. I don't know if there's any industry that's not being affected by AI right now. In the freelance fractional marketing world, the saying is that it's kind of shrinking from the bottom up. So at the top, like the fractional CMO level or the high end people with experience, that level, they're seeing less impact just because the human experience is still really, really important. So that's what I'm seeing there. I'm seeing, it's relatively new, so everyone's playing around with it a little bit. One thing that I always say is to make sure you're not outsourcing your joy to AI. Like if you started your own business, there's something you're really passionate about, and if you start saying, okay, I'm going to give the thing I'm most passionate about over to AI, and then end up like doing the other work, that's very quickly going to turn into burnout. There's sort of a viral meme that went around. Someone said, I want AI to do the dishes so I can create art, not create art so I can do the dishes. So I think that's something really important. And I know that's like something that you offer as a solution is AI for the things that people don't typically want to do, which people don't wake up saying like, I'm really excited to go find leads this morning. Yeah, so that's something I know that you help with. But yeah, very, very important that you keep like what you love about what you do. Even if AI can do it, if you really love doing it, I think that's really, really important. And then no one has a crystal ball about all of this. It's affecting, obviously, at large corporations at a systemic level, and it's affecting like individuals, who used to make a living doing like just freelance graphic design. It's affecting, but I still think there's opportunity for people being human. There's like we're built for community. We're built for human connection and authentic relationships, and I think that's that'll always still be very, very important.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on everything you said, especially around you want AI is, in my view, is meant to supercharge you so you can do the thing you love, and then you can focus on that and not have to think about all the things that you potentially don't love that takes up time and brain space. And also what you said then about human connection, I think that even in this era of AI, and even as it gets more and more advanced, I think as humans, we've seen in the pandemic that we crave human connection. So I feel like just like supply and demand on everything, this, the supply sort of shrinks because we're not having as much human connection. I think the demand for it will grow. That's where you want to have more human connection, more talks with people face to face as much as you can. And AI should hopefully, in one sense, could inaugurate that to and augment that, sorry, so it takes around all the other stuff and we can just focus on more human connection as opposed to the parts of the business and parts of reality of the world, sorry, that is more, mundane, punching in numbers and that type of thing.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. The routine and operational tasks that people don't really want to do.
Definitely. So, Melanie, what is working well and where do you feel slight friction inside Spring Street?
Yeah, I think this year it's starting off to be a really good year. So I think that the more people know about the fractional model, the easier it becomes to just talk about it. There's still a little bit of an educational angle to say, like, I mean, some people still are like, what exactly is a fractional? How exactly does it work? So I think the more people are becoming aware of like what the model is, first of all, and why it's beneficial, the easier it's becoming to like just shortcut past that educational part and get straight into into the nitty gritty of how it actually works and how it provides benefits. And then again, on the agency side, that's really what I'm seeing the most of is just a lot of like sort of like deconstruction. I still remember back when a one-stop shop was like the thing to have, like one-stop shop agency, one-stop shop financial services firm. Everything was like have everything all in one place, and now it's like pretty much the complete opposite. Like you don't necessarily want everything all in one place. You want what you need when you need it, and you want the flexibility to get it how you want it without like a lot of other things that you don't necessarily want around that one thing. So those are, I'm not sure if friction is really something I'm seeing so much. It's just things are just moving really, really fast. So I think being super adaptable and nimble is like, it's always important for entrepreneurs, but it's even more important now. So just like being able to like always be getting work done, but also like really paying attention to how to slightly tweak things, evolve things as needed to keep up with the way things are changing. I think that's what it's not really friction, but it's something that I think people really need to be aware of and pay attention to.
Definitely. So, it's changing. It's more just keeping up with the way things are and adapting your agency to be more like what you just said then, where it's like instead of someone having like a one-stop shop, being able to actually pick and choose, let's say I want that service and that service and I kind of like want to get you in and out. So like it's almost like both you have an agency and you have a CMO, but they're both going to end up, if it keeps on going, the trend keeps on going the way it is, it's going to end up sort of on the same model as opposed to two separate models.
I think so, right? Yeah, because a lot of fractionals right now they outsource the back office, white label it, and now I think there might be a little bit more like my fractional and I have like a team, but the team also works flexibly. Like they can take other jobs, they can do things on the side, they can have a side hustle, and then it's structured so that people can have like the best of both worlds.
Definitely. It sounds it's a lot more, people have a lot more freedom on both aspects of the model, the clients, but also the people working on there. It's a lot more freedom and a lot more like not bounded to one sort of structure.
Right,
Know, pick and choose and go and do all different types of things.
right. Yeah, I think one other thing to add of just about trends and to your question there is just the idea of charging for time, like hourly rates, I think is something that's starting to go away a little bit. I mean, and not just in the fractional world, but like even like lawyers and like there's so many places where because of AI, like charging by the hour it's not really the same as it used to be. And the fractional model is really more about charging for value and outcomes and results. So there's a little bit of an hourly element there because, if you're in a meeting for an hour, that's an hour that's easy to sort of quantify as like an hour of work. But when you're experienced, like you can come up with an idea or like spot an opportunity or spot a gap in a few minutes, whereas if you don't have that experience it may take much longer. You may like actually have to learn the hard way. So charging by the hour then is not really a way to charge for strategy and wisdom and experience and all the things that fractionals offer.
Yeah, I think that actually transcends across multiple industries. If you're an expert and you're really good at what you do, then charging by the hour is almost like hindering you because you spend years learning trades, educate, whatever industry you're in, you've spent that time to learn this. If that takes you 15 minutes, it takes you 15 minutes. If it takes you an hour, it takes you an hour, but it's the same. If you're getting the same out of it, you should be charging per execution of task or per delivery of whatever said, industry, whatever you're doing, you know what I mean? So you should charge for that as opposed to if you're charging by the hour, it kind of feels like you're not as an expert as somebody who isn't charging by the hour, if that makes sense.
Right. No, absolutely. And it's better for the client too, because if you can get something done in less time, I mean, I wrote an article just recently where it said, do you want a root canal to last 1 hour or 3 hours? So obviously you want the 1 hour, but even if the hourly rate
Mm.
seems higher because it only took an hour, you're not going to say make it last 3 hours because then I feel like I'm getting my hourly rate money's worth. Like,
Mm.
it's not really how it works. So yeah, so really the value-based model is in the way of charging, I think it's a win-win
Mm.
for everybody.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have to agree. So, Melanie, would you walk me through your client acquisition process? Like, how do you gain clients?
Good question. The fractional model is really low volume. So you
Hmm.
really only work with a handful of clients at a time and minimum 3 months, sometimes minimum 6 months. So it's not like this like high volume funnel where you have people who are like constantly hustling for leads, constantly hustling for business. So it's not really like that. I think there's that famous sales person saying like ABC, always be closing. I just say always be connecting because that's really, it's really just the fractional relationship really is like, it is, it's hinging upon like a connection. It's not just about skills. Like it's not just your resume. It's really like, are you a values fit? Are you a culture fit to the company? Because you're working very closely with the founding team. You need to be able to work together collaboratively. And so just, the client acquisition is not just like, where's a lead? How do I convert? It's not quite like that driven. It's more just like talking to founders as much as possible, really being curious about like what's driving them, what are their pain points, what are areas that they need support in, and just learning about them, learning how that can impact the type of work I do, and finding those connections, and then building from them. So again, I really only work with 3 or 4 max clients at a
Mm.
time, and because they stay around for a few months, it's not. I mean, you can have half a dozen clients for the entire year. So on the coaching side is a little bit different because that is a little bit more high volume. But yeah, on the fractional side, it's really just more about like networking connections, and because it's not like it's great because you're not in this constant state of like how do I convert, how do I convert. It's just like truly having conversations.
It sounds like very like it's networking, but very value-led networking to be able to just have these conversations with founders and explore their businesses as opposed to, like a more regular sales process. It's more you're having to give value and speak to these people, networking. Is that through LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn, in person. There's other platforms, and sometimes just word of mouth, like who else should I talk to type of
Hmm.
thing. Because you're really focused on the quality of the connection and not the volume of them. It's easier to kind of like hone in on what's really going to be value to both people versus just like trying to talk to like every single person hoping that a few will stick.
So do you have like would you say like using all these different techniques, would you say that you have like a predictable pipeline like every month or like a predictable number of clients that you have like every month? I know you said they're like 3 to 6 months. So like at the end of every cycle, would you say like there's a predictable number of calls or people that you take on each month or every few months?
Yeah, I'm not sure any entrepreneur has like fully predictable same amount every month type of
Hmm.
pipeline. There's always surprises. I mean, there can be surprises in a good way, like a sudden inbound request from someone I'm not connected to, never wasn't referred, they just found me. And then sometimes like there's those short things that you think are like going so well, and then there's like a hiccup, and then or like something happens with their business and they have to like pull back. So there's always like those surprises.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think, as the fractional model like starts to really become more and more like part of the way that we work and just integrated in the way we work, I'm finding my funnel is definitely tighter. So when people come in and like it's either we work together or we don't. It's not like this long like months of like back and forth
Hmm.
and should we, shouldn't we? I think that's like that doesn't help anybody. So that I think it's like, yeah, that's definitely something that's really tightened up.
So, Melanie, my last couple of questions is where would you want to be in the next 12 to 18 months in terms of business?
12 to 18 months. So, yeah, a lot can change in even 12 to 18 months. As I feel like every year, I'm just hitting up on my 5-year anniversary of having left my corporate job to go out on my own. And I feel like every 6 months has almost been like a different like era of working for myself. So, 12 to 18 months, definitely love doing the fractional work. So really continuing to work on, having that steady base of fractional clients, growing out the agency. And then I'm launching a couple new things on the coaching front, including something called the Solopreneur CMO group coaching program that's really going to help people, as I mentioned earlier, become their own best CMO and be able to do things effectively and productively while also doing the thing they really love, which is coaching or consulting or whatever type of service they're providing. So yeah, that's the plan.
Sounds good. And how do you propose to hit these 12 to 18 month goals? Do you have like a plan in place that you must implement to be able to get there?
Yeah, I think, as I said, the year has started off really well. I think just talking to as many people that where there's value there as possible, not just every single person. But the thing about the fractional business is that it really is creating access for entrepreneurs and startups and small and medium sized businesses that wasn't there before. So in the past, maybe like a startup would have to bring someone in and see, can you work on equity only? And that really limits the number of people that are willing or able to do that. For small and medium businesses, maybe they could bring someone in, but it's like a marketing manager level, not necessarily like full CMO level. So I am like what I'm starting to do more of now is take on that educational role so people really understand, like, is this for me? Is it not? Since it's still relatively new, people are getting their heads kind of wrapped around how it works. So I think a lot of just like really talking about what the model is and how fractional works, not just like what I do, I think is part of the plan, and really helping people realize how much access it's creating to expertise without all the huge commitments.
Definitely, it's definitely a game changer of how agencies and how CMO work, how it all sort of comes together for potential clients. Having access without having to pay for the things that you don't use is definitely something that could be used to their advantage, and they definitely should take it on if they don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to pay for like a full agency type of thing. I think it makes it a lot more accessible to smaller businesses.
Right, exactly. And one thing I kind of say to myself when I'm feeling like there's a grind is what drives me is this idea like I don't want someone else's dream to die because of marketing. Because there can be a lot of reasons that people close up their business or why businesses fail, but sometimes it is because of marketing because they just couldn't get the word out there. They just couldn't find the clients that they needed. So that is what I'm really focused on is like I just there's a lot of great ideas out in the world. People are innovative and creative and like giving them some opportunity and ability to really like bring that dream to life is what I that's like the reason behind what I do.
The driving force that gets you up in the morning.
Yes, yes, that's right.
So, Melanie, my last question is, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in your business, what would it be and why?
I think it's just doing everything as much as like as much as there is delegation, as much as I compartmentalize and streamline and make things more efficient, there's just always when you run your own business, when you are fractional, there's always just that feeling of there's more to do. So I think just yeah, that's something I feel like that's kind of a universal wish that everyone wishes they could wave a magic wand. I know that's something that you're helping with lead generation through AI. So yeah, that's really just the one thing. I'm not sure that there is a magic wand that's ever going to fix that completely. People will always be busy. There'll always be a lot to do. But yeah, I think that's something I continue to work on and say like, yes, if I could just make these things go away and only focus on this, that'd be great.
Very well, Melanie, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Where can my viewers and listeners reach out to you if they're wanting to collaborate and work together with you and Spring Street?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn. That's just like Melanie Schutt, fractional CMO. Like that's the best way to search. And then I do have a website that I call CMO Freedom. That's like sort of subsidiary of Spring Street. So it's just literally cmofreedom.com.
So everybody, if you're looking for fractional work, then please hit up Melanie and hit up Spring Street. And please like, comment, and subscribe and send to a friend. Melanie, thank you again. And everybody else, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. Great to be here.